Very good afternoon. You're with the latest on headlines today, and we begin this news edition with breaking news that we're getting in from Indonesia. Tragic news coming in, a confirmation of the chief of Indonesian Civil Aviation confirming that the debris spotted in the Java Sea is in fact that of the missing AirAsia plane QZ8501. The plane has been missing since Sunday, and now all 162 people, mostly Indonesians, are feared dead. The debris was spotted off the Kalimantan coast. The ill-fated flight was on its way from Indonesia to Singapore when it lost contact with the air traffic control. And the latest right now is that the Civil Aviation Ministry of Indonesia has in fact confirmed a crash of the ill-fated missing plane and that it has crashed into the Java Sea. I want to immediately cut across to our deputy editor Smita Sharma, who's been tracking all details emerging from Indonesia. Smita, earlier on, what was up to conjecture on those debris which was found floating on the surface of the Java Sea, now being confirmed by the Civil Aviation Minister as a crash and that belonging to the ill-fated missing plane?
Well, yes, Preeti, this is in fact heartbreaking coming at the end of this year, but at least the wait will not be an endless one for the families of those who were on board that ill-fated airline, because they will have confirmation now about what really happened to their loved ones, because the Civil Aviation Authority of Indonesia, they are confirming that all the wreckages that have been spotted since a few hours back, in fact this morning onwards, it is now being traced to that AirAsia Airlines. Really, they were spotted in fact not just off the Kalimantan Island but also of the Borneo Islands. Now, they were red, white as well as grey objects, some of them suspected to be life vests, and also a suspected body there spotted by the Indonesian military aircrafts who have been carrying out search and rescue operations in that area. In fact, the Indonesian National Search and Rescue spokesperson, who's Yusuf Latif, he also mentioned that these debris essentially appeared to be 105 miles south of Pangakalan Ban. So now all the helicopters have been pressed into retrieving these debris and objects. They will be further, of course, taken to the Search Rescue Coordination Center that has been set up at the Belitung Island, and then, of course, official notifications will go forward to the families of those affected and those passengers who have been waiting at the Changi Airport area and the other airports as well.
Smita, that's what I'm taking off from what you were saying there. So now confirmation coming in of this crash. Tragic as it may sound, that in all probabilities there would be no survivors in this case, but the fact that there would be closure for many of the relatives who are on board this flight. And interestingly, when it hasn't been for other flights like the one we were talking about earlier, the Malaysian Airlines flight.
Absolutely, Preeti. In fact, that Malaysian Airlines story is really so heartbreaking since March. There have been just so many months that have passed on, such dark nights for those families who have endlessly waited, because somewhere, if there's the slightest glimmer of hope, that what if under some circumstances the plane might just have survived, because especially in the Malaysian Airlines, in fact, if you remember, there were so many conspiracy theories about what were the possible coordinates, where it could have crashed, what went wrong. There were also conspiracy theories about the pilot and the co-pilot, whether there was some conspiracy angle to it. So clearly that added to the pain and the trauma of all those families. Here in this case now, of course, once the wreckage has been confirmed as being of that AirAsia Airlines, which otherwise has a very healthy safety record, never a plane lost before really, and is one of the very profitable, lucrative airlines operating in this sector. But for these families now, what they will wait to look forward is, of course, for these bodies, and if any minimum chance of any survivors somewhere to be retrieved by the military helicopters that have been
talking about the topography, Smita, talking about the topography of the Java Sea, how difficult will it be to actually retrieve the wreckage and the bodies?
Airlines experts seem to suggest that this area in particular is not really as complex as the Indian Ocean area where the Malaysian airlines seem to have gone down, because this is a much more shallow water area, but it is a pretty busy maritime corridor, and this is the reason why we saw Singapore also in fact come into rescue operations immediately, because this is an area where Indonesia, Singapore, all these naval vessels have also been operating. It is a pretty busy maritime corridor. Australia, in fact, also pitching in with an Orion surveillance aircraft, but it doesn't seem impossible at this point in time to retrieve all the wreckage. But then, some things are never explained much as we want to really do so, Preeti.
You know, Smita, for the benefit of our viewers who are just joining us, earlier on, of course, there was conjecture that the debris that our viewers are seeing on the television screen was, in fact, that which belonged to the ill-fated plane. Now the confirmation has come in. Can you give us just details on how it was established?
See, since yesterday, of course, there were these suggestions being made based on the circumstances under which the plane lost contact with the Indonesian air traffic control, because it had taken off from Surabaya. It was supposed to land in Singapore, but somewhere midway, the airline really faced a bad turbulence. The pilot, in fact, there was a cockpit request to change, to deviate from its flight path. The plane, in fact, wanted to go from a height of 32,000 feet to 36,000 feet, but without increasing its ground speed, really. The deviation request was not, of course, permitted by the air traffic control, but within minutes, this plane went missing. So based on these coordinates, really, it was being suggested, and also the fact that the airlines didn't have much emergency supply fuel, perhaps to last it out for more than just 3 or 4 hours, really. So it's already been more than 48 hours. The plane would not in any possible way have survived to be really on air. So it would have gone down in this Java Sea area. Now, some wreckages, of course, were being spotted. When the plane went down, initially we saw those reports coming in that there was a reported accident of the Belitung Island, but there was no confirmation that it was linked to the AirAsia accident, really. But now all this debris that has been spotted, they include some red, some white, some grey objects which have been floating. They have been spotted by the military helicopters. Remember, more than 100 helicopters pressed in there in this area by the Indonesians and the Singaporeans as well. And also these objects, some of them do seem to include life vests and a suspected body as well. But there were 162 passengers on board. There were crew members, there were infants, there were women. Now, all these bodies at some point will have to be retrieved. Will that be done? Will there be a closure for all families? Is something we'll have to wait and watch, Preeti.
You know, till now, Smita, an official announcement was not made of a crash. It was still deemed as missing. But now, just a short while back, the Indonesia Civil Aviation Ministry has made that confirmation. What is the standard operating procedure? What is the protocol from here on?
Well, see, they have said that based on initial reports that they have linked it, this debris that they have seen and spotted, the pictures, in fact, the satellite pictures that have been made available. But the physical debris really needs to be taken into that.
Smita, I'm afraid, just stay on with me. You know, I'm just coming in for just 20 seconds. We have Gurdeep Singh, PTI correspondent from Singapore. He's on the phone line with us. Appreciate you talking to us, Gurdeep. Can you just take us through the latest that is filtering in as of now, an official confirmation coming in of a crash?
There's no confirmation, but there is a Jakarta Post and other media reports saying that the National Search and Rescue Agency in Indonesia has confirmed that 10 pieces of debris were found, which are seen as red and white and believed to be belonging to the ill-fated AirAsia plane. So that's about all we are hearing. We're waiting for an official confirmation.
All right. So there has been no official confirmation which has come from the Civil Aviation Ministry Indonesia, Gurdeep?
No, this is from the National Search and Rescue Agencies.
And still the agencies are trying to establish whether that debris found floating, those aerial shots of those taken there, actually corroborate and are a part of the missing plane.
Yeah, they have not said that whether the debris has been collected, but it is found off Borneo Island within the same area, where apparently some fishermen has told the Indonesian authorities that they heard a thud and saw an explosion on Sunday morning.
All right. So no official confirmation coming in as confirmed by Gurdeep, where the Indonesian Civil Aviation Ministry is concerned. Gurdeep, once again, just take us through right now the search operations which have now entered the third day.
Yes, there are 30 over ships and airplanes involved in the search. And this is the third day, and they're continuing scanning the area. It's been divided in several blocks to ensure that, this multi-countries search finds some indication of the plane. And this latest report on National Search and Rescue Agency is confirming that there were some 10 pieces of debris sighted, spotted, and that's sort of not sort of good news, but still something has come to light.
All right, Gurdeep, you're getting in more news coming in. Just stay with us and maybe you can talk us through this latest news break. The news that we're just getting in at this juncture is that family members of QZ8501 passengers have been called in to meet with officials at search and rescue headquarters. Well, that is the latest news break that we're getting in at this point of time, that family members of the 162 people on board the ill-fated QZ8501 have been called in now to meet with officials at search and rescue headquarters. Gurdeep, can you throw light on this latest development? Do you have any word on it?
Not yet. I have not heard that yet, but I'm on the line monitoring.
All right, appreciate you joining us, Gurdeep. Thank you. Gurdeep, PTI correspondent, joining us from Singapore. He confirms that right now there has been no official confirmation, but the way things are coming together at this juncture does go on to suggest that there in fact has been the debris that has been found on the surface of the Java Sea does belong to the missing AirAsia plane, and an official announcement right now in the offing where the relatives, the kith and kin of the 162 ill-fated passengers on board of the AirAsia flight have now been called in to the rescue headquarters for a briefing. Smita Sharma, my colleague, is still with us. Smita, we were speaking to Gurdeep. Till now, no official confirmation might have not come in. That's what he's going on to suggest. But the way developments are taking place since the morning does go on to suggest, the latest being the relatives of the passengers on board QZ850 to be called in to meet with officials at the search and rescue headquarters, goes on to suggest that there has been a breakthrough, as tragic as it may sound.
Well, Preeti, we need to realize that here, as far as the situation is concerned, there are multiple agencies at work, really, which are coordinating and synergizing as far as the search and rescue operations are concerned. Maybe what our colleague from the Press Trust of India was suggesting was that from the Singaporean side, there has been no confirmation yet, because remember, as we have been reporting now, that the family members have also been called in, of course, to the search and rescue center, because the authorities will have a word with them. Till the time the families are not briefed, till the time the families are not spoken to, we will not see any government official really come on the record and make a media appearance, a minister or somebody. That will only happen once, of course, first and foremost, the families are notified, which is one of the standard operating procedures that we get to see in most sort of conflict, disasters, or sort of natural disaster issues. So also, remember that all this debris that has been spotted, which Gurdeep mentioned, has been spotted by some fishermen in this local area, which is off Borneo Islands, really, also the Kalimantan Islands of the Indonesian coast. Now, this physical debris will also be taken into that Belitung Search and Rescue Coordination Center, where, of course, they will be physically verified. The fact that these are white and red debris seem to suggest, of course, that AirAsia, remember, which the aircraft's, of course, logo, motto, because the airline is designed in red and white. And in fact, we saw that logo turn online into grey within moments of this news breaking in that the airline had gone missing, because the airlines obviously turned melancholy when so many heartbreaking visuals, in fact, started coming in of the family members. So I think they will first, of course, talk to the family members, and then we'll see either the Prime Minister or the Aviation Minister themselves come on record to media and, of course, confirm what has been the worst nightmares for most.
All right, Smita, stay on with us. I want to take our viewers through the latest news break that we're getting in on this. Since the morning, since in fact last evening, there have been dramatic developments that have taken place, which go on to suggest, as tragic as it may sound, that the debris of the ill-fated missing AirAsia plane QZ8501 has been found. There has been confirmation right now, which is coming from the Indonesian Civil Aviation Ministry, that in fact a plane till now, which was listed as missing, third day missing, has in fact crashed into the Java Sea. So that is one development that has taken place. On the other hand, family members, and that's the latest that we're breaking at this point of time, of passengers, the 162 passengers on board that ill-fated airplane have all been called in to meet with officials at search and rescue headquarters. All right, I want to immediately cut across to retired Air Vice Marshal Kapil Kark, who's on the phone line with us. Mr. Kark, Air Marshal Kark, with the latest that is coming in at this point of time, there have been developments which have been taking place from yesterday, multiple agencies trying to put pieces together, and now it does go on to suggest, even as tragic as it may sound, that it does seem that the debris, the wreckage, of course, has not been found, but the debris which was found floating on the Java Sea connects directly to the missing AirAsia flight.
No, this is, by and large, as you rightly said, extremely sadly at a moment like this. But this kind of a conclusion I had arrived at on at least half a dozen channels day before yesterday and yesterday. It is just fortuitous. In fact, last night I mentioned that we will probably find the debris today. Now, this does seem to be, but it's not yet confirmed, does seem to be the debris of the aircraft because that is where it has gone down. It will take far more effort on the part of the search and rescue organizations and the forensic experts to sit and examine this debris from various angles. But may I suggest to you, Preeti, that the only credible account of what went wrong with the AirAsia flight is the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. If we find just those two items, the investigation is over virtually, de facto. De jure, we can have a whole investigation going over weeks and months, because that will give us exactly what were the 200-odd parameters of the aircraft when it entered that storm, when it asked for permission to go from 32,000 to 38,000, when it apparently seems to have deep stalled in that thunderstorm, which is a common occurrence at that height, especially if the thunderstorm is rising so high up to 50,000 feet. That flight data recorder is the vital, and I have no doubt that will be the primary focus of the search and rescue agencies.
You know, Air Vice Marshal Kark, just take us through, sir, in the kind of topography that the various rescue agencies are actually struggling with where the Java Sea is concerned, and how possible would it actually be able to retrieve the wreckage and the data that you're talking about, as well as the bodies?
Not a problem at all. The difficulty with our media and the public is that they instantly compare MH370 with 2581. Now, the comparisons are odious here, because that apparently has gone into an area very close to Australia in a maritime zone called the Roaring Forties. Now, there are huge waves there. It's a very hugely deep sea. You know, it's the deepest sea possible anywhere in the world, whereas Java Sea is relatively shallower. So the difficulties that MH370 rescue faced are not applicable in this case. And I do believe, I have no doubt, in the next 2 or 3 days, we will find the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. And if those elude us, we will find enough clues to give us an idea about where it went down, how it went down, and what were the circumstances. But a detailed one will, of course, need a full-fledged investigation, the forensic part, and most importantly, the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. Because they also have a facility of transmitting what are called automatic codes. And so it will facilitate the search and rescue organizations to home on to that.
All right. You know, Mr. Kark, do stay on, Vice Marshal Kark, do stay on with us. We do apologize. We're getting in shots. We apologize for those of some bodies which are floating on the surface of the Java Sea. We're going to try and rectify that. Air Vice Marshal Kark, I want to come right back to you, sir. You know, with what you were saying, taking off from there, even though how heartbreaking that this may sound, that and confirmation coming in of this crash, at least there will be some amount of closure for the relatives of those ill-fated on this particular flight, contrary to what we've seen on the ones in the Malaysian Airlines.
I think here again, Preeti, there has been a very positive departure from what happened at MH370. I have been stressing this in the public debate over the last many days. Information management is the key to mitigating the deep sorrow and anguish of the families of the passengers. MH370, both the Malaysian authorities, airline, as also the government, tended to be very economical with truth and facts dispensation. They put out facts in driblets. that which led to a whole range of speculation all over the world, including professional people whose job it was to examine the cause for that accident. You recall, the viewers would recall, that the Malaysian Air Force chief had said that his radar actually picked up this machine, but he thought this was an airline. But this came much later. If that Malaysian Air Force input had gone to the airline authorities, aircraft would not have been looking at the Sea of Vietnam for the wreckage. They would have gone where this wreckage would have possibly been. So vital time was lost. In this case, the airline, I have to compliment the CEO of the airline. AirAsia is also operating in India, as the viewers know. He has gone on the pathway with great sensitivity, with great understanding. He's been conveying information to each passenger's families, most of the time himself, through tweets, through Facebook, through email, as to the progress of whatever they have done. So to that extent, the point you made is extremely important. How do we bring closure to a case of this nature? And I think closure it's unfortunate. Accidents happen everywhere in the world.
Yes.
Still, the safest form of travel is air travel compared to road travel. That's statistically proven. So therefore, this is one of those unfortunate incidents, and the families they will move on. They will take a long time, but that's what history, aviation, and individuals and societies are all linked in that continuum. And we hope 2015 will be a better year for the world in terms of civil aviation.